Embarrassing gaming moment? I think just one that I was like scratching my nose from the other angle. It looked like I was scratching inside my nose, but it wasn't. So I think this one, and it was in the start of the first split, I think, in this year. It was kind of embarrassing, yeah.
I was in the first strike Brazil event, the first one, and we got like 13-0 in the match. Fate was with me in that moment, so I guess that's it.
Absurdo! Que seria difícil! Que será impossível!
I would probably say like every time I whiff on stream, it like a little bit of my soul crumbles. So I think every single time I whiff on stream, that kind of hurts my pride, you know.
Olha isso! Ele atira andando!
I mean, it's not embarrassing in a funny way. It's embarrassing because it was really embarrassing. It haunting me to this day. It's when I was still a player and we lost the final of the first master to Australs, and we were playing in Weigers with Kesnit and not my former my teammate Suter. We were playing for Weigers at that time. We lost 3-0, so it was pretty tough because we were the favorites in some way.
Probably my whiff against Paper X in Iceland. That was pretty embarrassing.
Force, they never make mistakes.
Jing just got 2 kills in mid, by the way. This kill, well, yes, might be impactful.
Kill them now!
He knew!
I don't know, it's not really like embarrassing, it was more sad, but like losing to the guard last year when like we got #1 seed both years, like we just couldn't keep up the form at like an international like fully. I mean, second's still good, but like we obviously really wanted to win. Like it was pretty like I guess embarrassing because like people were like thinking very highly of us when we were going into it, and we just didn't show up when it mattered fully. So this year will be different.
I think it was 13-0. We lost a lot back in 2022 Challengers. We actually were playing our best map. I think we never lost a map before, apart from the problem we had in Champions with Breeze. And then we played loud and they absolutely crushed us like 13-0. 13-0, 13-1 maybe? I'm not 13-1 I think it was. At least not 13-0. It always was like very embarrassing for us.
Ele contra 3, acerta o primeiro de Marshall, será que dá pra passar? Mas não!
Oh shoot, probably when I was like 7 years old or something, like that girl from Bakugan, whatever her name, the blue-haired girl from Bakugan. Like when I was really young, probably. That was like the first like cartoon that I like. That's what got me into anime too. So.
Oh my god, I don't know in English the name, but it's O nome da personagem do Phantom lá. Phantom, do you know Danny Phantom? Yeah, his girlfriend, I guess. Yeah, Samantha.
Wow, cartoon crush. It's kind of a crazy question. I would have to say like back in the day when I was like 10 years old, I'd be watching Inuyasha, an anime. It'd have to be like Kagome or something, the girl that he was always falling for, Inuyasha.
Oh, that's a weird question, man. That's a weird question. Okay. Like crush, like I think Didi from Dexter's Lab, I think it's called in English. Yeah, it has to be Didi, yeah.
Cara, não faço ideia, mano. Carly? iCarly?
Bro, I have no idea. Let me think. Give me a second. I know I had a big crush. Maybe you know Misty from Pokemon? That's a good one, right? Yeah, that's a good one.
Cartoon crush? I don't know. I don't think I've had one. I'm not gonna lie. I'll probably have to go with Peter Griffin.
Cartoon crush. That's a good one. I think there was a cartoon in Brazil that was like I don't know the name in English, but it was like Três Espiões Demais. There's something like that. And maybe someone from there, but I don't really remember too much. So.
Cartoon crush? Maybe like like Dr. Doofenshmirtz's like daughter, like from Phineas and Ferb. Be her?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that question. I don't know, either Jet or Sage.
The grand finals are set, and it's all come down to M80 and 2Game. 2Game have been on fire since the break between the group stage and the playoffs, and have had the ability to watch the lower bracket play out and prep for their future opponent. After their mid-group stage slump that involved losses to both M80 and All Knights, they bounced back in a big way to conquer both of them on their path to the grand finals. A win here at Ascension would mean a lot to this roster, but also the Brazilian region as a whole. Their opponents, M80, defeated All Knights yesterday in a 3-2 reverse sweep in the lower finals. M80 looked totally lost on the first two maps, as Dante Deus was absolutely torching them on the Neon, going a combined 41-19 across Haven and Lotus, while averaging over 300 combat score. The tides turned quickly though, as it was evident that M80 had been in these high-pressure moments before. Meanwhile, the cracks began to show for All Knights. M80 crawled back into the series with a 13-9 victory on Sunset before taking total control of the series and dominating the last two maps, including Abyss, a map that they had never played before in an official, and earning a berth to the grand finals.
We kind of knew that the plan was going to happen, that we were going to kind of hide Abyss until this time, and the plan kind of got executed. So once we came here in playoffs, we knew that was going to be played, and that's what happens first time we show it.
The dynamic at play in the grand finals will be very interesting, as it will mark 2Game and M80's third meeting in less than a week. These two teams have an extra level of familiarity with each other, and with M80 showing their Abyss, it seems that all the cards are on the table. This series truly will come down to what team will show up when all the pressure is on. It's finally time for grand finals and to see who will ascend and earn their spot in VCT Americas.
It all comes down to this, the 2024 season, all this Valorant, and after all of these playoffs, only 2 teams remain. One, just a best of 5 away from ascending into Americas. Welcome, everyone, to the final day of VCT Ascension Americas. This whole entire tournament, everything has been such a roller coaster. I expect absolutely nothing less for the final day. My name is Sierra Dawn. I'm absolutely honored to be here, and honored to be here with just everyone that I've worked with has been absolutely amazing. But I'll talk about the people I'm honored to work with on the desk today. We have none other than Wyatt and Lemon Kiwi. I mean, it has been such a great tournament so far. The ups and downs from the very first match here, Wyatt. Going into this, we had expectations. All of them shattered.
Yeah, I mean, who's in the finals? Is it, I don't know, M80 and the Guard, maybe? Or maybe M80 and, I don't know, TSM? Maybe the first seed from Brazil. Wait, hold on. You're telling me the second seed from Brazil, they came third in Split 1, third in Split 2, qualified off points, and they're here through the upper bracket? Huh? Huh? How the hell, how did that happen? What?
It has been crazy from the get-go. I mean, coming into this, I think a lot of expectations were that M80, a favorite coming into this, that we would see them in the grand finals. But the journey to get here has been anything less than ordinary. Undefeated in groups, but being knocked down here, Jen, for a 2G that, I mean, they qualified off of points. They went 2-3 in groups and went off of tiebreakers. And then for the run that they've had,
yeah, I think 2G and M80 are the 2 teams in this bracket that have the highest levels of confidence and obviously the talent to go along with it. First, it was M80 that humbled 2G in the groups, where even 2G were like, it's going to be a different result on a different day. And they showed exactly that in the very first match. They faced off in the last week of groups, faced off in the first match of playoffs. Then 2G humble M80, send them to a lower bracket, where yesterday M80 had to pull off a reverse sweep. If this was a best of 3, M80 wouldn't be here. And now we get the ultimate rematch.
the ultimate rematch in the best of 5 grand finals. And the journeys have been different and anything but ordinary, but for one, well, it's all going to be ended today. It doesn't matter. Anything else up to this point does not matter. It's just this one match ahead. There's so much to be talking about. But before we get into that, of course, interviews from the players to get us started.
Cara, fica muito mais confiante do que os outros, eu acho, porque a gente quase nem passou nos playoffs e agora tá na grande final, derrotando todo mundo, e eu acho que isso dá um up pro time. Eu acho que disciplina é o melhor fundamento nosso que a gente aprendeu, e eu acho que a gente tá se lidando muito bem com as VODs, reviews, com tudo. Cara, eu acho que a Valorant, porque eu quero ter a revanche contra eles, que a gente perdeu toda hora pra eles, e eu quero ter a revanche. E uma mensagem pro meu time, que eu amo todo mundo do meu time, eu quero que a gente vença, vá para as franquias, e é isso.
To be honest, we just had to be blunt, bro. Like, we had to wake up. Our coach was hard on us. Our RGO was hard on us. We had to like really understand like the situation. Like, we're down 0-2 in a best of 5. Like, if we want to win and we want to make it to franchising, like, we had to do it then. So like, let everything out. Make sure you know what's up. And like, it just ended up working in our favor. Everybody started dialing in. We started working together as an actual team. And yeah. To be honest, like, we lost to 2G last time and we beat them the time before, but I still think we're by far the favorite team, like, despite these scorelines and despite what's going on. Like, we have the best players, we have the best game plan. Like, we literally just, like, forget how to play the game sometimes, and, like, we just gotta, like, snap out of it. And when we snap out of it, we do what we do. Like, we just win. Last year against Guard, yeah, it sucked. Like, we lost, but, like, we're back for vengeance. Like, we have a lot of players like BCJ and Net that came from franchising. They want to make it back up there. I want to make it for my first time, so does Xander and Nismo. We really want to win, and we want to prove that we can actually deal with all these top teams. We're just honestly, like, if we just got to listen to our IGL, we got to listen to our coach, we got to listen to every strat that's said. We can't hesitate. Maps 1 and 2, we just didn't trust each other as a team. We were all doing individual plays. We can't let that happen. For some reason, it's been happening, and we got to stop it. Tomorrow's the final day. We got to work our, sorry for swearing, like, we got to do this. We just got to keep trusting our game plan and just go with it. I think we obviously shown that we deserve to ascend, but we haven't shown our peak performance at all. I think there's been glimpses of it, but to be honest, like, we can do so much better. Like, we really, like, tomorrow we can definitely 3-0 2G. We should have 3-0 today. Like, we should have a horrible game today, and we still ended up pulling it off. And, like, I can keep saying this all I want, but until we actually flip the switch and actually dial in these first few maps, like, nothing will change. We got to work really hard. We have to talk about it tonight, figure out what to do, and yeah.
A lot of insight from the interviews, and specifically something I want to kick off with is the form that M80 have shown so far, which in the playoffs is not necessarily what we'd expect. They're starting off really early on. They faced 2G, and looking back at this match, this was the upset of the tournament. It was a 2G that this was night and day here, Wyatt. What they were able to show up, everybody firing on all cylinders, and an M80 that were just absent.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to say about that game. First of note is, as always, you have that duelist threat on 2 game where you get Sunset where Spike gets to play Neon, you get Icebox where Silence gets to play Jet, and they both go off. Already, you're in trouble. And yeah, I mean, when we're looking at the group stage, M80, they go 5-0. Everyone said, but all the games were close. They could have lost to anyone. And, well, yeah, that ended up being the case. They actually could lose to the teams, even though they went 5-0.
Especially just the pain point of Sunset was really exposed out of what we thought was a impenetrable map pool out of M80. That's why they're undefeated. That's why they almost, if not went undefeated in North America, is there wasn't really something to target, and 2G really put salt in the wound, really starting off on Sunset. And M80 have kind of laughed about how slow their starts are, and we even saw that yesterday. But to beat M80 on Icebox, I think was a huge statement that 2G are here to compete.
100%. In this 2G squad, talking about them first, even if they probably weren't on anybody's pick'ems to be going through that upper bracket run, it was something that was so wholeheartedly deserved. From that match up against M80, they brought dimensions of ideas, they brought this counter strategy, and they backed it up with this aggressive play style that M80 couldn't match. They have the capabilities to be able to shoot back, and what they showcased against first M80 and then up against AK Gen, they fully deserved this spot in the grand finals. This is up against the match from M80, and they counter-stratted, followed through, perfect.
Yeah, and despite, quote, M80 being the favorites of this tournament, it's 2G that remained in the upper bracket without losing a single series. And like Wyatt pointed out, that I want to reiterate, they barely even made playoffs of Ascension. It was off of round differential. And even they kind of admitted to just being the underdogs in their interview. And now they have to go up against North America's best. And there's a lot of mixed experiences on the 2G roster. Some where 2G is their very, very first team. They haven't competed on a stage like this, and others that bring a wealth of experience under their belt. And they seem to be really supporting each other, confident enough to yap across the stage against a lot of well-known players. So we love to watch 2G play.
It has been so much fun, and there's a couple of people to be looking at, but first off, when we're looking at 2G, I'm looking for that flexibility. I'm looking for the in-game calls. I'm looking at Zap. Wyatt, maybe Zap isn't as flashy as the others, but when we're talking about the IGL of the team and someone who is able to be calling up against this M80 and be able to take around this turnaround, even if the stats aren't like, oh, these #1 rankings, what he's been able to provide to the team, you can't measure up there.
No, I demanded that for one goddamn day we don't do a duelist stat sheet for one of these teams, and we have Zap instead. I really wanted to talk about this guy because, yeah, like you said, in-game, I mean, you're looking at the rankings, he's not lighting the world on fire. They don't need him to. I think as far as his in-game play, he's the kind of guy that will give you a couple rounds a game where he will straight up win the round for you. He'll find those high-impact kills. But for me, it's really what he's doing outside of the server. I question if 2G would be able to get here without his mentality, without him being this driving force of their confidence, the hype that they have as a team, all the trash talk. That is really important for a squad that is mostly inexperienced. Some of these guys have been hanging around for a long time, like you mentioned, Jen, in Brazil competing, but to come here for someone like Spike to show up at Ascension on his first legit team, from Neon ranked demon to this guy might be in partnership in just a few hours from now. You need an emotional leader like that to keep everyone feeling good. I think he's been instrumental in this run.
Yeah, he's been the hype man in and out of game, and out of the players that I spoke about that experience, he's represented multiple of those banners. And despite, the stats being not at the top, I think he really excels at breach maps, and they really look structured behind his util in that case. And he's usually in second in frags when it comes to the breach, especially most amount of assists, especially while IGLing. That's like a lot on this guy's plate. He's also the oldest on the team, so there's a sense of maturity and like when to let those emotions kind of guide you and fuel you to shoot better, to really have that energy translate into the game, and when to keep things calm when things aren't going so well.
And that is going to be so important going into today's series. Up against M80. First off, again, the favorites coming into this. And it's also an M80 that yesterday were able to come back down 2 maps in the best of 5 to be able to close out, take it to a map 5 we haven't seen from them before, to find themselves here in the grand finals. Looking at 2G, they need the strong mentality. They need a strong leader, because M80, they showed us, Jen, yesterday that they have that mental and they can close out if you are caught slacking at any point.
Yeah, we just talked about Zap being a hype man. Well, how about Nismo? And he's got guns on his arms too. He'll throw a table at you if you're not careful. It's so fun to see M80 get really fired up, because it does feel like it's M80 against the world in terms of all the teams in Ascension, like coming a lot from South America. Then there's M80. So I feel like M80 are a very, very flash-heavy team in terms of, yes, like the flash is the util, but also flashy. I'm looking at the KO, Gecko, Breach. These initiators were so synchronized yesterday, nearly perfect with Koala Noob's entries, and whether it's Nismo and BCJ or Nismo and Xander, usually combining for like 25 plus assists. This is a united team effort, and despite those pop-off players like Koala Noob, he'll get those quad feeds. You're seeing the clips. It's really everyone helping Koala Noob achieve that.
I mean, there is different pop-off performances at each different stage of the way. So yeah, at the end of those highlights is the Koala Show, and definitely deserve shout-outs there. But earlier on in that do or die map, Xander had a huge step up. We're talking about leaders for the team, and Xander has been somebody that throughout Ascension, throughout the playoffs, and in groups, has always just been a strong pillar for the team. Someone that has been making these calls, Wyatt, as well as been showing up in the server. I mean, he went 31 and I think it was like 11 on the third map yesterday. I mean, he can clutch it out when needed.
Yeah, and credit to Koala on that Sunset map as well, went 24-13, but on defense, the off picks that he was getting, instrumental. But obviously, do want to focus on Xander here, because if not for that performance, that might have just been a 3-0, and they would be going home. The amount of 3Ks he had, just ridiculous. You can't say enough about this guy. I mean, look, there's plenty of teams that want him. I know all the Sen fans are hoping that M80 lose today so he can go over there, but because he's a hot commodity, because he is so damn good, adds so much value to this team, and then when they need him most, he's going to drop 30. But listen, he can't do that every single game, and like Jen was saying, it's about this M80 team as a whole. That is really where they excel. As far as the team play, I will stack them up against any other team at this Ascension tournament and give them the edge.
Yeah, I think sometimes he pulls off the impossible. I literally remember casting him on Ascent in like a 1v3, 1v4, and I was like, damn, he's got like 10 seconds. There's just simply no way. And then there is a way. If Xander's on your team, there is a way and there is a will, and he will be that pop-off player that you saw the amount of clutches he had. He had 10 clutches, which is not number one, but probably number one when it comes to this series. So look out for Xander.
Yeah. Where it's number one is the momentum that M80 is able to get off of that. And M80 being such a momentum-driven team, the rest of the team follows up from there. And I mean, Wyatt, you said that, oh, like, I fought against the duelist stat sheet. We had to include one in there. Someone that really got that momentum going later on was Koala Noob. But I want to stack him up against Silence on the other end of things, because Silence was somebody, when they met up last time, really shut down this M80 squad. But when Koala Noob has hit the server, that impact is known.
For sure. Koala had, I think, the best game of this whole tournament yesterday, which was that jet on Abyss, and Silence kind of looking like the king of Abyss every single time 2G have been on that map. He has just dropped minimum 20 kills. Out of control. And it's a cool comparison too between these guys, because not only do they pick up that duelist role when necessary, but they flex as well. You know, Koala goes over and he'll play that Omen on Icebox, which we're probably going to see today. Both these teams go to that map. He plays the Sage as well when they run that comp on Lotus that they opted to run yesterday, that triple Senti. And Silence plays Sentinel himself, Cypher on Sunset, a common map for the 2G squad, for like every team at this tournament, honestly. So yeah, both guys have an opportunity to flex around and be that star for their team when necessary.
I wonder how this Jet matchup is going to go, because just based on how, which is weird for Koala Noob, because the very first map yesterday on Haven, it was so wobbly. It was maybe an uncomfortable map for them, and just a lot more time on the Yoru. And then Koala Noob's Jet kind of took over the lobby yesterday. While the Silence, you talked about that flexibility wide of they can play the Raze and the Jet. They have Spike for the Neon. So you would think the map pool would favor 2G based on the amount of duelists they can play. But it's M80 that have a pretty serious win rate on a lot of these.
Yeah, I'm worried about 2G in a best of 5 setting. So looking at that, that's just a little taste of what we've seen throughout Ascension so far. But 2G has been scaling, and it all comes down to this. Reminder, 2G coming through that upper bracket, they're going to be getting the ban, so they'll have the upper hand, at least when we come into this select tier, Wyatt. And this can be really interesting, because the biggest win con I'm looking at 2G is the ordering of the maps. I think if M80 gets that momentum, it's lights out.
Definitely. I mean, 2G having the 2 map bans can't understate, obviously, how influential that is going to be on the series. They're going to take out Ascent first. That makes perfect sense to me. We have barely seen any Ascent this tournament, period.
And double Senti, ew.
Yeah, and M80 are really strong on that map. Get it out of there. And Lotus, that's another map that M80 pick a lot. It's their first pick a lot. And so, you know, getting rid of that makes sense. They beat 2G on it prior.
Also, just the triple Sentinel. You don't know what's going to happen with M80. They pulled out the triple Sentinel on Lotus, and despite it losing, it's just something that maybe 2G aren't experienced against.
Definitely. And then also, right, it's like how much prep do you have to do then on top of the prep you're already doing if you're worried about 2 different comps coming in? That's just a lot to, you know, deal with for the coaching staff to deal with and try to figure out. So just get rid of it. don't bother.
Hey, yeah, I'm a fan of getting rid of that Lotus. Sunset is going to be the first pick from 2G, though. And this is one where we saw that loss before. But when we look back at just throughout Ascension, M80, even if they've suffered some harsh losses, they've also been able to show that they have a Sunset-capable comp. And going to Icebox second, even if there was the upset there, Jen, that is the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and try and close that out.
Yeah, I mean, M80 had an explosive offense yesterday with an 8-4 half. It did take Xander having to drop a 30 bomb, which, thank God we highlighted him. It's going to take an all-star performance, but Sunset was the tipping point. That was the beginning of the reverse sweep for M80, and he got Icebox following it up, so this could be a good start to the series for M80, depending on the Sunset matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
What I love here is Bind, of all things, of the Decider map. M80 first banned this all the time. We have not seen it in the 2024 season, but fun little tidbit, last year in the grand finals of Ascension up against the Guard, we got to see M80 on Bind for the first time. This is a different era of Valorant, so what they played doesn't matter, but they pushed the Guard into an overtime, just barely losing out. So if we get to a map 5 of the series, even if we haven't seen this, there is so much surprise and upset potential there. It could be absolutely amazing, but it's whether we get to that 5th map in our first place, because when we go back and talk about the map pools and the win percentages, everything here, Jen, looks still pretty good for M80.
Yeah, this was the last map that M80 won, which was an all-star performance from Koala's Jet that truly proved that he could have that high peak. Even though in the interview they said they hadn't reached that peak yet, we saw some absolutely incredible Jet from him. But he's going up against Silence, who also dropped a 30 bomb against All Knights on Abyss. They are also a very, very scary Jet team. So I think for me, it's going to be about how does M80 start? Is it going to be that molasses like 0-2 M80 that are going to make this crazy comeback? Or what start will they have?
It's if they start like molasses, 2G have the opportunity to get at the second biggest of the tournament right here. But of course, we set the stage on what to expect. But now what we think is going to be coming out of the series, talking a little bit about our predictions. I know the desk has been pretty unified when it comes to M80 on how we think the matches are going to go. I'm curious going in and looking at our predictions for today if it's kind of the same thing. Because I know for myself, as much as I saw everything go down, I had to say M80. Oh, Shift's going to be the odd one out. But
game. I mean, honestly, though, maybe saying 50-50 isn't putting enough respect on 2Game. The reason I'm going M80 and the reason I think that they went 5-0 in the group stage is compared to the field. They eke out more round wins than anyone else based on how good they are in common retake situations like set 5v5s, 4v4s, those big situations that you can really drill in practice. They excel at those more than the other teams and will win more of those than the other teams, even when their firepower is kind of lacking. I think that's what has given them like just enough consistency that they went 5-0 in the group stage, but you can't deny the explosivity of 2G and how ridiculous they are individually. I think Silence has been the best player in the tournament, and they've got him, and that makes a big difference.
yeah, I don't think how the predictions are really just show how much respect we have for 2G. I was going to predict them up until like an hour before the show when I was finishing my notes saying just like, based off of everything, I still think M80 have got it. But 2G, what they've gotten to show us, that level up, the scaling that they've had throughout. Again, for a team that almost didn't make it to this point, but it's time to get started. Grand finals ahead.
Don't catch me on pedestals. I'm not your professional. I'm way too intentional. Yeah, I'm professional. Why is the movie not credible?
Van a pasar, Ojito González, por favor, que no más. ¡Sí, por Dios! ¡La doble del baile en ese rival! ¡Qué cosa que junto a una! ¡No! ¡Triple, triple, triple, mamá, qué onda! Esto pintaría terminado, a no ser que ese mando se encienda. Va para adelante y va para sentar.
Talking and maybe you'll listen and maybe you're smart and you take my advice. There's only a winner.
Thunder tiene una Yachi asegurado. Desde el principio la segunda también va a caer. Lo sigue haciendo.
No tiene teleportación tampoco. ¡Ay, no! ¡Falló el disparo! ¡Le quedan 4 segundos! ¡Puede plantarlas por ahí! ¡Falló Sato!
Talking and maybe you'll listen and maybe you're smart and you take my advice. There's only a winner and only one winner in every race at the end of the line.
¿Listos para conocer al ascendido? Solo una persona podrá levantar esta copa. Solo uno podrá formar parte de la bendita VCT Américas. Ladies and gentlemen, boa tarde galera, boa tarde Brasil, con ustedes, con samba, alegría y juego bonito, Two Games con magia, mucha vida, inteligencia. Llega el capitán, me gusta gritar. Es inteligente, es vivo, mueve bien la cintura, me lo pega mucho. La mejor flecha de Brasil, el mejor soba del mundo. El hombre inteligente, el director de esta orquesta.
The North American champions looking for a victory once more. This team knows how it feels to be defeated, but they know better how to rise up again. Please give it up for M80! Looking for only one thing, and that is victory! Please welcome to the one and only Kohaladu! The boys leading the team, the
all comes down to this. Grand finals ahead. One best of 5 remains for these two teams. And for one, their journey about to end. The other, only getting started. One will be ascending to VCT Americas, and so well deserved for both of these teams. M80, the favorites coming into this, but 2Game, they have shown time and time again that they are more than ready. They are capable. And Wyatt, that was the upper bracket run. They just have one more upset, and that spot could be theirs.
I think this chat poll better even out. I'm just looking at them in the corner. Listen, I know we might be a little bit NA biased, but guys, come on, at least give 2G like 25%. My God, man. This game, if you're just tuning in and you haven't watched any of the games, don't trust the chat poll. Just ignore it. This is like a 50-50 at best for M80 right now. That is very funny, but listen, to take it back to the seriousness of this situation, M80 have been playing for 2 years, the core of this team, for this moment. This moment again. They got here last year. They played against the Guard, who beat them, made it into partnership, and look at the year that they've had internationally. One of the best teams in the game. That is an inspiration for every team that is here competing in the Tier 2 scene, trying to get into the Partnership League, and how crushing it would be for M80 to make it to the finals and come up short again.
And this is a map pool that Sunset, Icebox, Abyss, Haven, Bind. If M80 can get a good... They actually need the early start. I'm really worried about Abyss, Haven, and Bind, which is M80's perma-ban of Bind at the end. And Haven, which was very shaky out of M80 in map 1 yesterday. And Abyss, which is a toss-up. So need a very good start for both teams.
Yeah, it's all going to be starting on Sunset. The Blacklight Agent Select, and we've seen Sunset coming out so many times from these teams. It's where the upset started before 2Game. They got Spike on the Neon, always so explosive, Silence as a backbone. But M80 Wyatt, they had such a strong showing here yesterday.
Yeah, they did, and it required Xander dropping 30 and Kuala 24 kills to win a game in regular time against All Knights. And the last time they beat 2Game on Sunset, or well, they beat them once, Nismo dropped 30. So if that's what it's going to take, this is going to be really tough.
Well, M80, they're notoriously slow starts to these series, but they have the opportunity to switch that up now. Sunset, the first in our best of 5. 2Game, they need to get the momentum here. Starting now, let's get into it and head over to Vansily and Shift to take you through our first map.
Should be a great one. I mean, in all instances, this is a best of 3 between these two squads. It went M80's way the first time in the group stage. 2Game get their revenge in the upper bracket, but now the grand finals with a best of 5 on the line, and of course, more coveted, the prize of becoming the newest member of VCT Americas. I'm Shift with Vansily. Brother, how are we feeling about this matchup?
This is going to be one hell of a matchup. Agreeing with Wyatt that this is 50-50, but in quite all honesty, if you're looking at how the veto went between these two teams, I might have to hand a slight advantage to M80 to kick things off on Sunset and Icebox, where 2Game actually did have the upset against M80, but this has been an M80 that has studied their mistakes and figured out what was wrong in those games, and it came back swinging, for example, on Sunset against Glorious, not given a chance for Sato in this Neon composition to get activated at all. So I'm hoping here at this point, if 2G's coming into a playbook that basically antied M80 the first time around in the upper bracket, hopefully they have something here in the grand finals to ante the ante.
Counter the counter, ante the ante. It's literally Valorantception. But no, I think the thing about it, and why I'm I think most excited about these first 2 maps in particular is because of the reasons that you list out. M80 came into their first match with the upper bracket saying, Sunset Icebox, cool, this sounds good to us. Had their same playbook. 2G counteracted it perfectly. They did their homework. They had every single response at the ready, and M80 never were really able to come back and make the adaptations that they needed to. So now that you've got the run back here again with Sunset Icebox to start us off, there's no excuses. M80 has to know what 2G did to counter them the first time they played just a couple of days ago. So now there are just time to put up or shut up, slam dunks all around. We've got 2G and M80, map number 1 of our VCT Ascension Grand Finals. Let's get it on.
And for M80 are hoping that they will start things off with a slam dunk, agreeing to what Sierra was saying before. They are known to have very slow starts here in these high-pressured matches. And now they're kicking things off on the pistol round, on the attack. They can set the pace, and they want to make sure that they win this pistol. So 4 players now grouping up towards middle, and it's about to get checked here by Zap with a passive crossfire setup with Bryzy. And they're just walking in for the first contact.
Yeah. This is good, though, for 2G. They're very aware of it. Not only that, but they also have good members that could deter this, if not possibly fight it back. And M80 will say, no more. Okay, that's the line in the sand. Drop the dart cover, pop the doors towards market, and create some chaos here for 2G to deal with. One way has been replaced, though, and Luis still holds the paranoia if he does find contact.
And this is good because of that crossfire setup and the door was closed earlier on. You have to keep those players up passively on the top middle for 2G. So M80 pivots back to an A site where they can have maximum 1 or 2 players, but playing outside of the site. So this should be an easy site to take on a 5 versus 5 potential retake after this plant.
He's in tag. Luis does get hit by the spy cam placed late in towards elbow. Zap likely going to wait for help, and then he will be the linchpin of success towards possibly finding re-entry. A flash and a fault line still to play with. Also keep your eye on Spike. He's going to be the first one likely to try to challenge this corner right through main. There's the fault line. Immediately with the relay ball by VCJ. But it just takes it out of commission. The Dizzy regained maybe a chance to get a little bit extra here, but a little bit held off. Good fight back though. VCJ gets 3 before dropping, and Zap with only 20 HP is just way too far outside the picture.
And way too low on HP as well. Lagos is not going to be enough with 3 players out of M80 that are still full health. And Xander, that was the one that was damaged, is the one that's going to pick up the kill without taking a lick of damage from Zap. A great pistol round to kick things off, and a great setup by M80 on the post plant. Remember, these flood retakes on the A site could be so devastating for the players having to play turtled in or inside the site and not play for the spams. So throwing that one away onto the short side, out towards the dumpster, it's great here for M80 that it was just going to be Nismo with the fault line to slow everybody down after the initial wave of util that's going to be thrown on a defensive side. And he's going to be the only body, so everybody else can stay inside and go for the crossfire setup. But we'll hold that thought. We're going to go straight into the action in round number 2, potentially for a relay bolt swing out on a tap. And here it comes.
Yeah, the thing about this was Xander takes the proactive dash across with a teleport, and there is just no way this forward 2G defense can hold against the superior firepower that you see out of M80's hands. At least it escaped from silence, but hey, we're dealing with a 5v2, just classics left. Very clean execute here for M80.
They want to chase these kills onto Koala Noob. He was only had 1 orb so far here on the Dimensional Drift. They want to get it up as soon as possible because he has been a key component into the strat of M80 to try to get as much value as possible into his Dimensional Drift so that he can have the cleanest executions for what seems to be like clear protocols on how they want to play the post plan, and so far fairly clean. So I do like the idea of at least playing forward on the defensive side, on the eco side for 2G. It's just that the camera wasn't there. It was still being placed towards the window to watch towards middle. So they were kind of like going into the unknown as soon as the orb was tapped. So when you swing out and there's 5 players there is nothing you can do with 2 classics.
Yeah, just trying to make something happen out of nothing. That's just what we often see in the anti-eco from the defensive side. So now full weapons have been purchased. Spy came up top for silence. It's often here. Cyber cage down. That's the decoy out, but I actually believe the spy cam may have actually tagged the real version of Koala Noob. Hard to say, but Silence is still aware of the play. Shuts down the first. Rash gets deep, and Xander tries to get aggressive, but only finds 1. Silence now trying to hold while help is on the way.
Just hoping that the pathing of the Thrash is going ahead, but Silence then a fight. Doesn't wait for his teammates as Nismo trades it out. A 2 versus 3 now at a disadvantage for M80. Still with the post plant, with the spike down, and finally the rest of 2G are going to be grouped up.
Man, Luis is taking way too long trying to play this over to the middle of the map. He's wondering if maybe someone is lurking. So in that process, Zap and Spikes kind of have to re-clear Boba, and it's an aggressive angle by Net that shuts it down. So, wow, the bonus looking clean for M80. Don't rule Luis out of this yet, but the fault line was thrown through, and Net was right there on the off angle to get his 3rd in the round, and M80 are off to the races 3-0 up.
And you still have to respect this individual prowess from all of these players from M80 in the bonus round. You have a timing thanks to the Thrash that created all that space. Yes, Quality died, but it still gave a chance for Xander to go through the smoke, to get an opening kill, and actually to create chaos and not give a chance for 2G to have the perfect placements and the perfect positions to set up for a retake. So Net plays forward. He surprises more players. If he died, it was potentially going to be a 1 versus 1 or 1 versus 2 for Nismo to close it out. And at least they've done the econ damage if they lost a round. But now they get better than that. They win the bonus round, and this puts 2G back into a thrifty round.
Yeah, very true. But this time, a little bit more potency than the classics we saw in round 2. You've got Sheriff upgrades across the board, with the exception of Pricey just on the Stinger. And there's a 4-man defensive setup over towards B. Kind of similar to what they were doing with their classic save round in a way, but playing with a little bit more, I would say, adversity towards contesting the choke point rather than trying to get into B main. Silence by himself. Oh, he lines up too! Are we kidding? What a play from Silence. That now puts the numbers in favor of 2G, who can very much so still fight back even with these weapons.
Schiff, we're going to have another one of those scenarios, because this gives me PTSD from the upper bracket too. When Silence was alone on the B side and still manages to get a 4K with the Sheriff to allow 2G to get a thrifty and continue on and win the map of Sunset against M80. But thankfully now, at least, he had to fall back with the rest of the team, and Net's the one pushing forward again for a flank.
A little bit sloppy. Silence finds himself at third. Wow, he is starting off hot. Now it's pushed down to the 4v2. Silence able to upgrade into a Vandal. Makes good use of it. Not going to have a chance for the ace, because Pricey and the rest of the group has stormed the fort. What an unbelievable individual moment from Silence, and get used to that, friends, because he's good for it more than just this once, you think.
And that's no cat's a curse. We called a 4K from Silence last time. He got it this time around too with a Vandal that he picked up. And unfortunately there, the backstab from Net was perfect, but he just whiffed a couple of shots and unfortunately falls behind, and it makes it so that you have to try to play a retake on a 5 versus 2. Everybody's so hyper-focused on watching towards the gate, which makes sense because Net already grabbed that space towards the shop. So I love the reposition to have a 4-1 retake on your thrifty here for the defensive side of 2G. Although, again, this is 3 rounds in a row that was won here by M80, so they still have a healthy buy. But, you know, the momentum has been shifting in terms of the economy. It's much healthier going into the next round for 2G.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments that you kind of, it's a recovery round. After dropping your bonus when you have the full weapons, now you get an eco to follow up. Fault lines cutting across this early action over towards A main. Ends in a 1-for-1 exchange. Defense still wants to hold aggressively, and no one even bothers to check for Zap. And oh, what a mistake that was, because now Zap is looking good for 4. Luis comes over and steals it, and I think Zap is sitting like, brother, well, I was right there, I had it. But regardless of the fact, 2G's defense was solid on the front barrier to test.
And that's a flash of miscommunication coming out from M80, similar to how it started against our opponents yesterday when they were actually trying to move up. I mean, you look at the util, everything was being pushed here towards this right side to not allow a crossfire being set up here by Zap and Luis. So yes, they maintain and contain the one on the right, but they swing one by one on the left side against Zap, not going for a wide swing to guarantee that trade. It was 3 easy kills, micro adjustments on the crosshair placement for Zap, and now we're going to round number 6, a little bit quicker now for Spikes. As they take control, though, of B main, and that's going to slow things down for a bit. You see the smoke being thrown, too, just to maintain that space. But M80 already pushed up towards middle.
Yeah, think about this, is Silence is not playing on a site this round. So he had the cyber traps down and the angle being held. That's enough to say, M80, nope, you can't come this way. Go find somewhere else to play. B main's not an option anymore. Spike made sure of that. And with, again, the one way being thrown over towards A, the only option that M80 really have right now would be to play through this smoke or see if they can make some movement happen over towards market where there's a double stack of defense. So 2G have done a very nice job in the first 30 seconds controlling the map.
Yeah, even Owl drone at the minute mark, seeing that there's no mid pressure, so it's going to be on the extremities where you contain when you contest. So you see now they double up on the elbow side, Drip watching the left side, and they had 3 players towards B, but that single piece of Agent, of Koanuv setting up that fake, keeping it across, and a 5-player hit is perfect.
Yeah, this little buddy is going to be blown off the map right here by the Rolling Thunder. The follow-up to Spike and Pricey is perfect. And that pushes now all of a sudden M80 back in towards B main. The shots are just not landing right now for M80. Now, granted, again, it's not a great buy, so you can't be too critical of it. But regardless of the fact 2G have put together a blacklight flawless defense, and we're all of a sudden tied at 3.
That's it. It was a lower 5, but you were hoping at least for a spike fight, at least for some damage now. As Sato's in the crowd with the rest here, supporting the Brazilian team of 2G. Family and friends gather up here to watch this grand finals, and you see that it's split literally 50-50 in that crowd. They all look at each other at the end of these rounds just to smack talk over to the M80 fans out there. But overall, man, this is looking pretty good. The fake looked like it was going to work, but it came down to that Rolling Thunder set behind by Zap just so that it could flood retake very quickly against M80's attempt to plant.
Hunter's Fury one away for Prizey, but on the other side, keep your eye on Koala Noob and the Dimensional Drift. These are rounds that usually based off Dimensional Drift, M80 are usually just good for, flat out. I mean, he gets so much space for free. So how are 2G going to try to set up defensively, knowing that this is going to be a continual problem for them on the day?
Yeah. And this was an opportunity for M80 to snowball a lot of these ultimates with those 3 rounds that they first kicked off with. But now it takes up to round number 7 until Koala Noob can get his Dimensional Drift. This is where it's going to start. This is where 2G has to be ready for it. Because you know Koala Noob's going to try to find that information. They're going to try to tie it up here with a fault line. It will get the stun onto Luis. There's that.
Oh!
And he still gets the kill.
Unbelievable from Luis. We've seen this happen before. And Luis, I think he knows it. That fault line comes across. The Dimensional Drift just popped, and he knows that he's going to have to take a fight pretty quickly, and he almost follows up on his Xander. But a 1v3 situation. Spike can be reclaimed. Teleporting further away from this defense is Xander, and he's going to get a reset on the 1v2.
Shadows traveling. But Xander in the clutch, you know you could count on this man, but he has no utility to work with. It has to come down to positioning. At least now, you know that for Prizey and Silence, they also don't have any type of util, no recon available either to try to sniff him out. And now he's in prime position here on the outside.
First shots are decent. Prizey over the top. Xander, oh, he had a look at it. But Prizey able to follow up after the heroics from Luis. And like I mentioned, there needed to be some sort of a response for the Dimensional Drift, and Luis says, just come get me. I'm good for it.
And it's just a good read too. That was a solo play by Luis as well. If he was to falter in that elbow area, that would have been the whole site taken over, and the other player is so far away to be able to help out here on that short side. Immediately after though, as Luis wins that fight, look how quick they came down towards the short. Spike slid down, making sure that he could capitalize on those kills, because everybody behind, lagging behind the Dimensional Drift, will be trying to focus on taking down Luis. So a nice little push and pull, and this definitely has to be the first timeout call, because you've gone now through 2 big ultimates within the last 7 rounds that could have snowballed things back into your favor. That Thrash and the Dimensional Drift got fully denied, and it didn't get value out of that. And it's up to Happy to talk with the rest of his team just to try to bring the senses back into this squad.
And now all of a sudden, I want to kind of harken back to a point that has been brought up a couple of different times throughout this event. M80, when they're at full purchase, are losing more than they're winning. It's less than 50% win rate when they're playing full versus full rounds versus their opponents. That's something that really was a linchpin against them when they were playing 2 game in their first round of the upper bracket. It was a big problem when they were in the first 2 maps yesterday in the lower bracket final. And now, without things like the Dimensional Drift at the ready, you're going to have to go up against things like Hunter's Fury, things like Neural Theft, things like the Overdrive, where you're just playing with those full rifles. That's got to be where M80 are better today if they want to have a chance to try to stop this 2-game squad, which has gotten much improved since the first couple of rounds that we saw them in the group stage.
Definitely, and now with, once again, some heavy pressure happening towards this B side, already M80 will start working as a group up towards middle. It's been the same type of condition on that side. As soon as the one-way smoke and the relays and the stuns come through, M80 pivots towards the top, and now it's greeted by Luis. The off-angle the lineup, 3 on top of that. This is not looking good for M80's attack side shift.
No, that was one of those challenges that kind of felt a little lazy. Like, you know, Luis is up there. At worst, he dropped below it, but we're just going to just double swing it and do it together instead of trying to flash him out or anything of the nature. And to make matters worse, Spike has found a component towards mid. That's going to be just a high gear play where Net saves it. A chance for him to possibly even plant here to reset what would be now just a 1v3.
Oh my god, would this mean a lot here for M80 and Net? The trip will get spotted as Silence breaks it. This could isolate potentially a 1v1, but he chooses to move towards the garden to win that against Zap.
He knows his timings. He knows that Silence should be close. He just has an outlaw, and that's all he needs. Let's go scopes in, finds the shot, and it's 5 rounds in a row for 2G. Initially, it all starts with silence. The last couple of times, it's been Luis, though. And wow, this defense for 2G is really showing up.
Yeah, and for M80, you were mentioning that flash at the top or whatnot. I think it's still understandable here for M80 that they didn't do it because they didn't go for any smokes on the left or on the right side because it wasn't really that contested in terms of aggressive positioning or aggressive peeking coming out of 2G. They turtle up towards quad, they turtle up towards the staircase, so there's an opportunity that they could actually, once again for M80, group up in the right moment where they could potentially trade a 2 versus 1 and open up the map a little bit more. But this time around, Luis understands that they weren't playing with these flashes, so he plays on the top of quad. It breaks the crosshair placement because nobody's going to look up there, and he gets the surprise element. The element of surprise, rather, to get 3 kills in a round.
Well, this time it's M80 looking to get a bit aggressive. Silence deals with the decoy. Paranoid not going to get sidestepped. Surprised he has to come through to see if he can find any more information as the trap wires have been deleted. Drone didn't really find too much. Spikes, though, cleans at the middle of the map on the rotation back over. That was a good attempt from Net to get behind the play, but he gets completely shut down. M80 trying to hold aggressively. Decent detain starts to come through as 2G had to hit a bit of a pause. Overdrive still in play, though, and that might be all Spikes needs. He slides back and forth. I mean, what? He is gliding, breaking angles, putting him on skates, and Spikes cleans up round 9.
You know, when I'm watching 2 players try to shoot after a Neon and can't kill him on pro play, I feel a little bit better in my ranked games when I'm whipping these shots against a sliding Neon like that. But that said, that thrash that actually detains players towards that back again, getting some value this time around for M80, pushing out towards Boba, who seem to have this game plan to want to continue to flip the map when they have the numbers to work with here on the attack side. But because they detain that other player and there's still Spike that's alive, you can't really try to push in. There's also support utility coming out too to make sure that M80 cannot get the full collapse back into flipping that map into Boba. So again, 2G in terms of the macro play has been looking pretty good here as a team.
Yes, they have. And I think the thing that's been really cool about 2G's defense to this point is we've seen it find success on the aggressive nature of the defending side, and we've also seen them do really well in retaking. So it's one of those things that M80 are going to have a hard time kind of delineating where is our problem, because at certain points we can't get the spike down. At other points, our post plant's just getting broken. So really making this a pretty convoluted mess at the moment is 2G's defense. And this is going to be a first look for M80 to try to threaten market early in the round.
If anything here, Shift, for M80, they have to make it into this sites with at least like 3 or 4 players still left alive. They're losing a lot of these players at the very beginning. Look at this. Net's about to get taken down. Boom. Off. Great utility once again. Being utilized by a fault line off Aldrone, Hunter's Fury, a trip that activates everything. Great way for them to play towards the extremities here for 2G.
I was about to say for 2G, this is great in terms of isolating market and being able to, like you mentioned, get around the back. But the problem with this was M80 would use this as a bit of a fake. So the spike will get planted. You have a Rolling Thunder to help support this. Neural Theft also at the ready. And keep in mind, Koalanoob is way behind this play. Problem is Xander just peeks out into the open, doesn't find anything off the flank. Now you got to spend the Dizzy to try to get something going here, and they luckily do, right as the Rolling Thunder was essentially avoided by the majority of this defense. Zap trying to hold over towards Main. He gets one. Koalanoob now trying to help over the top. He finds the second over towards Elbow. The flash connects, and now it's just down to Silence. Mosh Pit kills a little bit of time, which is really coveted here for Silence. He has to get this to halfway. He'll be allowed to, but Koalanoob will peek, find the Elim, and M80 find a way back on the board.
And you see how much of that strategy relied around and trying to keep Net alive too. With him dying and no trip watching that flank, they had to commit Xander to fall back and watch a little bit more aggressively towards that spawn. And as soon as they realized it was a 2 versus 1 on that flank, you're now expending your Rolling Thunder going into watching the backstab instead of using it towards sight where their opponents could be flooding in. That potentially could have really nullified that late lurk where you mentioned Koalanoob was on a run here to try to make that happen. We were so far behind, but thankfully, because they got those trades towards the end, because of the hero plays that came out towards those 2 players in the back lines of the A site, it gave a chance here for Koalanoob to gain that time back in his favor and win that. And yeah, now round 11, you see 2G to continue to try to contest different extremities, but so far so good for M80. They haven't been met up with that early aggression out from 2G. It's just the mid-rounding that still looks to be Brazilian sides to win.
Yeah, good sight here in terms of the dimensional drift being earned and then immediately utilized, try to isolate. Again, Koala just loves to stick for these. Ball line comes out. That's a good flash to follow behind it. Silence can only get one. Sight now taken by M80. Spike planted in the same breath, and the retake for 2G is going to have to be through market.
And this time, no real ults to follow up here to help out in the dimensional drift. Just trying to waste the time to give a chance here for Net to come through, not to go for a flash in a solo play. So it ends up being very good trades on the side of M80.
I think the other part about this for 2G, if you could pull the Thrash out, that would be great in terms of trying to get the round 12 advantage. And there's the Thrash.
Yep.
Spikes also finds an elimination. Ball line's going to cut across. Spike's looking to get aggressive with a flash that's right there to counteract it is perfect. Luis trying to get this thing to halfway. Hell, nicely. He's going to hold it for more. What? Zap is able to triple him up. And once again, M80 left to the resources and just playing off one another get completely shut down by a single member from 2G.
3 kills and a Rolling Thunder available for round number 12, but all of that couldn't have happened with the space, that Spike was able to get towards that B main. With the Relay Bolton coming through and keeping those players at bay, you saw that BCJ, despite him getting that kill, he was rushed to throw his molly to get that kill down onto Spike. So it actually did not land at the right spot here to deny that defuse out from Luis and gave a chance here for Zaps once again to line up a 3K.
Oh, this now all of a sudden starts to feel like a frustration play. I mean, you're on a bit of a save. Luis once again planted in the corner at elbow. Not today. No, sir. Sit down. 2G looking perfect on a lot of this defense. After the first 3 rounds go awry, they're in a prime position to take 8 of 9.
And it wasn't a little bit of a save here. It's basically buying whatever you can in the last round of the half. Basically calling out bankruptcy, going all the way down to 0 in the buy-in, once again trying to take control of elbow. And Luis survives at 1 HP. How many times this game has he survived with little HP in these fights?
Wow. And that is a statement round to finish the half, where M80 are just sitting here, you know what? Playbook isn't working. Let's just go back to the tried and true. Flash, dash, so to speak, by using the gate crash to get deep. And Luis is, I don't want any of that. Are you joking? Get out of my face. So what has often been the trouble side for 2G on this map all of a sudden turns into a miraculous finish. And now they go to their stronger side overall, where again, when these two teams played in the upper bracket, Vansili, M80 had a perfect response for what, or pardon me, 2G had a perfect response for what M80 liked to do on defense. This is a troubling moment here for M80.
To go back at it again, they were really doing a great job manipulating around the map and going from creating some early pressure, keeping their opponents at the top where they were expecting for a contest where they could set up these crossfires for M80. And once they cut noise and try to move around towards the mid map, that space is even given up by M80. Then it becomes a double pump back from 2G to take control of that space and go for these nice splits. But what's been good for M80 on that previous matchup against Galoris, where they tried to learn from their game against 2G, was really trying to fight towards that A side extremity at the very beginning on the defensive side. And also activating Koala Noob on the op ASAP, of course. That has to be continuing to be one of the winning conditions here of M80 on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I think the thing here is, this M80 team has often relied on being able to ability stack to kind of fulfill this defensive half. And 2G's contestability was what I really walked away with as being a major note of adjustment for how they had played the offense the first time around. I mean, you go back to the early stages of the group stage, 2G were just running and dashing with the Neon.
Yeah.
In the upper bracket, so far when we watched them play this, that hasn't necessarily been the first instance of the case. Yeah, that still happens, but it comes a little bit more calculated, with a little bit more methodical of an approach in terms of how do we make sure Spike finds these 1v1s in a little bit more of an easier fashion. And that has been an issue for a lot of squads. So M80 need to decide, I think, coming into this defensive half, not only do they need to find a way to win the pistol, but I think on top of that, are we going to try to contest a little bit more and try to fight at the barriers more than just holding back and trying to play a 5v5 retake?
You bring up a great point. It seems like in the group stages, all of us were kind of rap-godding these rounds whenever we had to cast like a Neon and Breach versus a Neon Breach. But this time around, as the tournament progresses, a lot of these Neon comps now added a little bit more of stop and go, a little bit of mid-rounding. And it works very well here against these teams that maybe haven't played against enough. Neon and Breach comp.
Yeah, Frenzy out for Slice again, just as that entry. Luis to follow. Xander tries to step up with Ismo on the cross. That's not going to work out. Trades favor that of 2G's offense, and they're trying to double swing the player deep over towards backside Boba. Nismo, new angle now approaches. and he's able to take down one, make life a little bit easier, and you've got a full HP Koala still to play with here, so no reason to do anything too crazy, but Silence steps through the Aftershock, finds himself a trade onto Dispo, Sheriff out for Koala Noob, needs to just hit one more shot on the Zap, counters the flash, there's the peek and Zap, lines up the headshot and a key pistol goes to 2G.
Oh man, and that was a headshot that was needed there. The headshot at that distance, a 105. With the investment that you saw from Koala Noob, it is a Sheriff that he had in his hands, so no armor for him. For sure becomes a headshot. The idea was there though around the Aftershock, just to try to split up those two players around the pillar to try to win a 2 versus 1. But just there, a little bit of a miscommunication where Koala Noob was set up here. Almost looks like they were looking for individual 1v1s towards the end after the Aftershock. And you saw that Zap never peeked out. And Nismo lost his 1v1. And it allows 2G to win the pistol here on their map pick. Again, this, when we started this series shift, we were mentioning this looks like a veto that still favors M80 because of the history that these two teams have against each other. Again, you're looking at a map number 5 that's that's fine.
Dude, stop it! Put a leash on him! Are you joking? He's just solo peeking B-main off of the spy cam that sees nothing and coming away with 2? Unbelievable. Net, shot opportunity versus Louise. Shots are just not there. And 2G are going to run away with the round unless Koala Noob can step up and hit a couple of one-taps. Yeah.
Looks here, Shift, that it was basically M80 playing against All Knight's Tinjoff, where he's just winning alone with a pistol and gets all the openers that's needed. Yeah, that's way too bad, unfortunately. Therefore, a pistol gonna get so much value on that B site. And 2G's running away with his first map.
And that's the thing, you know, just to put it into full-on visual evidence, that's what 2G was doing versus M80 in the upper bracket round 1 matchup that they played. Getting onto a site and then not just holding it or playing backwards. Nah, we got flashes. We got neon. Let's use that. And if Spike survives until the spike is planted, that is what you're often going to see. Some sort of a fault line or flash or recon dart coverage to where Spike can now take the advantage of pushing out, doing neon things, and getting away with it. So a clean round leads to a full bonus essentially here for 2G. Early damage also touted as Walden gets pushed back in towards the backside of B.
Some great damage being done too, and that was... Yeah, I think there was a camera that was being thrown right by Silence that looks up towards middle. It allows the fault line to actually get the hit onto Koala Noob and not allow M80 to get that surprise value here that Koala Noob we were praising him for. Solo plays, not getting a pick, falls back, heavily damaged. It gives a lot of space now for 2G to work with. There's only a solo player inside the site. Thankfully, there's a camera to start to set things up. To put Koala Noob, to put Xander in a position inside the smoke where he's pretty much in a one and done.
Yeah, and the thing about this is they're going to wait until this fault line is recharged, which now it is, and he's going to use this to try to open up the backside of side over towards mid. Net likely will be affected by this, and it's back to see Spike dashing up, and Xander steps up, tries to break the timing, doesn't fully work out. Zap caught! Uh-oh, that's good news for Net. Turns this to a 3v2, fast lane out. Still, the battle rages on towards the backside of the site. Trades back and forth. Prize is able to find himself too. Now for the 1v3, does not expect Net, who will save the round for M80 and avoid a 2G bonus coming through.
2 big kills there by Net. Winning that 1 versus 1 against Zap was a great start. You just mentioned the fault line that was just replenished here on the side of the attack that could have been very, very detrimental to M80's attempt to retake that site, and that fault line was up. A very similar setup on a pulse plant that was attempted here for 2G, just like we saw M80 do here on that pistol round, keeping that breach behind enemy lines at that short A side and just line up the fault line whenever it's needed, whenever the action comes out here from the defensive end. And thankfully here, Net winning that one gives a fighting chance for M80, and yeah, we're looking to fight here towards B main.
And it's not even just that. This is pressure on B main to see if they can push 2G over to Xander's direction because he's got a judge out, but Silence takes the 1v1 versus Koala Noob and wins it by a bullet, so now this judge is ineffective, and you've got to already hit on the precipice of B. BCJ, Nismo trying to hold. They do a decent job to start, and that is also in position, but 2G clean up M80 flawlessly. Now a chance for the plant, and it's just down to Xander with a judge.
Just makes you think, is there something that they've learned here from this matchup? This is deja vu. into the silent camera, looking at the top of B main. That spots Koala Noob, that gets the sneak behind for the backstab. Instead, you mentioned it, it was what, a judge in the hands of Koala Noob. He's not in a position to play long range. Yes, he avoids the camera, but he still has to be peeked out a little bit more towards that back wall, so it's easy for Silence to just watch that line with the Vandal and get an easy first pick. That just opens up the sight.
Yeah, the judge was in Xander's hands that round. He was playing towards elbow. So that whole idea, I think, is just M80 are trying to control B main early and saying, hey, you have to go A now. And nope. Silence just steps up, takes a 1v1. So it's a good idea from M80. Try to do something a little bit more creative and, just try to force maybe some of that early contest that we were talking about. But it just doesn't work because Koala Noob drops his 1v1 and two games say, all right, well, with him out of the picture, we know B's gonna be wide open because there's no way that he gate crashes back and we have a heavier defense towards Boba. So it's just really good mid-round adaptations knowing the situation at hand.
But again, it's been a position that's been played before here from Koala Noob at that spot towards B main. So despite not having a judge or a Vandal, whatever gun that he has, this is still something that Silence knows of that's been a 1v1 at that very spot. And it just seems that maybe Koala Noob felt that confidence that we'll go through that ring once again, and I'm going to be able to win that best out of 3, at least in the amount of times that we could potentially contest this B main. But it's Silence at the top, on point, once again. Been good at the shots here with the Sheriffs in that thrifty round that they had earlier on, and continues to be a force to be reckoned with, for 2G side. M80 still have yet to find an answer now.
How about this? Silence is going to go to an outlaw, knowing that M80 are on a limited buy. And he's just going to try to play this thing over towards B main, maybe even take it out towards that A link if this eventually becomes an A hit. And it's going to hit hard. He's got enough to obviously afford a full weapon, but this is a bold call and just try to play a counter to knowing M80 are on a limited purchase.
Still very interesting here, Shift, because they threw that smoke at the very beginning where you mentioned Silence with the Outlaw, and he stayed in range to know that Koala Noob move forward, that they have contested the orb, and that he has the ult. And maybe because of these one-way smokes, they're like, oh, well, we picked up an orb, they're contesting it out with the smokes, they're probably going to hit towards the A site. So the audible call now for 2G is to re-hit the B main.
It's going to take time, though. These smokes are, they're persistent, and they are annoying. Silence is going to wait for this to dissipate. It's going to take a while, though. Aldrone will see if there could be a tag first. Doesn't really see too much. Xander gives the shoulder to it. Spycam going to get replaced. No tags there either. This is becoming laborious all of a sudden for 2G, who are now looking to try to open something up through market, knowing that Silence has not been able to even take a shot at anybody. So you've got the time ticking away here. 28 seconds on the clock. 2G trying to make a play through market. First element is good. Now it's down to M80. Can you hold from inside the site? And Xander's save. Not going to line up. Neither does Koala Noob. And 2G are looking good for 12.
Oh, they're missing a little bit of pressure now coming out from M80. Understandable, though, because they have a lower buy. But this should not be easy for BCG. And net, although BCG does get that pick on the zap.
And they have a thrash. Problem is, you can pick up weapons, you can't pick up armor. And Silence, well, for a second, thought he's going to do it all himself. High-low setup here for Net to deal with. And if you're 2G, you just don't have to change this. There's just nothing he can do to clear this angle besides swinging it. Trying to get something through the wall. Not going to happen. 2G trusts the setup, and it turns into now map point.
Again, the patience displayed by 2G going towards the B main. All 5 of them were just looking for an explosion into this B site because they had the Hunter's Fury with the Aldrone and an overdrive to work with. They clear it out with the Aldrone. Nobody's peeking out here from M80, so you're still questioning where the positions are at. So they pause once again and go for a mid to B split, where because of all the utility that's being used here towards the B main, it seems as though M80 were kind of just hyper-focused to watch towards that spot. And it weakens up the market. It allows Spikes to get an opener, a second kill on top of that, and now there's still money left here for M80.
Overdrive Bucky. Spike is going to get deep. No Diddy. Able to find the overdrive. Chewing up the rest of Hunter's Fury's there. And all of a sudden, 2G's out here saying, what was that Twitter poll? You guys had M80 at like 80+%? Hurt my feelings. 12-5. Plant in the mix. Net and Nismo down to a 2v4.
Yeah, and the rolling thunder from Nismo towards the B side, thinking that the hit was there, and boom! Nobody there to greet them. The spikes towards the H side, and it's a beautiful masterclass round once again by 2G. That Hunter's Fury and Overdrive was supposed to be used on that previous round. They still do it this round. They still get the openers, but they rotate over towards the A side, outplaying M80 on the defense.
And this cyber cage with the paranoia behind it, everything is just turning up in favor of 2G. Nismo, last one left. Guardian, able to get the first, but nothing more. 2G make a statement in map number 1, kicking off this grand finals with some heat.
Sorry, 2G, I was unfamiliar with your game. Maybe it's the 2 game that I have to start learning instead. For them to actually ban now, again, those 2 first maps, Ascent and Lotus, where M80 already looked shaky at the very beginning, at least in their matches against All Knights yesterday. Something they could have learned here going into the series now. 2G just stick to their plan. The maps that they're strong on, the maps that they know that they can fight with, and they start off on Sunset again, where this breaks a little bit the momentum here and the mental here for M80, because you walk into this game into a series where you know how they're going to play the Sunset match, yet you still lose it in a one-sided battle there against 2G. I'm looking forward for the rest of the series now, Chip.
Should be good, because I think the other part about that is 2G win it in a way that is different than how they had beat the M80 the first time around. Icebox awaits for us here again, best of 5. Plenty of time, especially if you're familiar with what M80 did yesterday, but not the greatest of openings as we said to break, and the desk will be back to break us down.